Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is the story about Naruto. What if Naruto was trained by Tobirama Senju? Part 3. Hope you'll enjoy this video. So before we start, please do support for more awesome content and also hit the subscribe button and share this video with your friends. And also support the creator of this fanfic. I have created many playlists, check it out in the channel. So let's start the video. It was already late in the night when one Uzumaki Naruto opened the door to his apartment before allowing himself to breathe properly. Switching the lights on, one detail on his person revealed itself. He was severely bruised, and every step he took, a slight moan of pain was released. All the genin wanted right now was to crash on his bed as he allowed his high regeneration powers, Kyuubi, to work its magic. The day-to-day started out like any other day for the last 4 weeks after his team passed Asuma-sensei's genin test. His team would meet every day at Training Ground 10. He woke up a couple hours earlier than the meeting date so that he could get some hidden training done, mostly chakra-intensive exercises like chakra control, ninjutsu, and genjutsu. He would leave the physical workout to his team training since it would be prudent to spar against his team or even Asuma-sensei as opposed to battling his clones the entire time. After a couple spars with the team, Asuma-sensei would take the team to the Hokage's office for a D-rank mission. When Naruto learned about the nature of those, he became frightened. He allowed his vivid imagination to run its course, picturing how one Nidaime Hokage would react upon hearing about what it entailed. Of course, D-rank missions, or chores, as Naruto preferred to call them, did not exist in war times. Back then, the village earned its money with more hardened missions. Perhaps, the risk-free mission, back then, was to deliver a scroll to another village. After the shock ceased, Team 10 got a respectable rate of 2 D-ranked missions per day. It was actually at Naruto's insistence, because Shikamaru was all in favor of not doing any missions. Naruto even convinced the Hokage into giving him a solo 3rd D-ranked mission after getting Asuma's approval. He argued that it would benefit his income some, considering that he no longer received any help. In fact, one of his solo D-ranked missions was the reason he was in the state he was upon entering his apartment. Apparently, a civilian wanted to test his fighting skills against a genin shinobi, and Hiruzen saw no harm in giving it to Naruto, considering his taijutsu prowess corroborated by Asuma. Of course, Hiruzen failed to mention that the civilian was actually a retired samurai who abandoned the art of the sword in favor of focusing exclusively on taijutsu. The spar, if Naruto could call it, lasted about an hour as the opponents traded equal blows with one another. The client of course had strength and experience whereas Naruto only had agility and the knowledge passed on by the Nidaime. Still, the client applauded the boy for his fighting prowess and promised that he would report so to the Hokage the next day. For Naruto's experience, it was a boon. To his body, however, not so much. Man, I swear that guy has bones of steel. Well, I guess I can skip training tomorrow for a good night's sleep. That was the last sentence he spoke before he passed out on his bed. The next day, upon feeling the first rays of sunlight on his face, Naruto's eyes slowly opened up. Normally, he would be out of bed long before the sun came up. Come to think of it, this was perhaps the first day since he met with the Nidaime Hokage that he had overslept. The pain from yesterday was now a mere nuisance. The genin got out of bed and went about his morning routine as if he was on vacation. His team normally met in about 2 hours from now, so he could afford to take his time in getting ready. Unfortunately, his body was used to speeding this up, so it took no longer than 20 minutes for him to fulfill his usual routine. That meant that he had a lot of time to kill. What to do, he wondered. He was not a fan of taking leisure walks around the village, nor was he inclined to visit someone. Unfortunately, or fortunately in his mind, both his profession and his hobby were perfectly aligned. He had to keep training in the shinobi arts to improve his skills and rise in the ranks. But he did not mind it, far from it actually. Opening his closet, Naruto grabbed 2 small scrolls and opened them on his kitchen table, one on top of the other forming a cross. Performing a sequence of hand seals, both scrolls came alive, with kanji spreading over the table. Naruto bit his thumb to draw blood and went through hand seals before passing his bleeding thumb on the 2 scrolls, summoning a big blue scroll, Nidaime's legacy. Once opening the big scroll, Naruto scrolled down the taijutsu, ninjutsu, and genjutsu section before going for the other arts that Nidaime dwelled on in his days, namely space-time ninjutsu and fuinjutsu. There was lots of information about one technique called Edo Tensei, but Tobirama strangely wrote only how to release the technique rather than how to perform it. Naruto knew now that Nidaime had a reason for everything he did. The description alone indicated that the technique allowed the user to summon the dead. That was enough for the boy to steer clear. Regarding space-time ninjutsu and Fuinjutsu, Tobirama had already informed Naruto that it would take a long time before he would begin to understand the concept. The scroll explained that it would be preferable for Naruto to begin with Fuinjutsu first, which would allow him the adequate basis for space-time ninjutsu afterward. Tobirama's trademark ability, beyond his Suiton capabilities, was the technique called Hiraishin, which according to the man, is a space-time ninjutsu used in conjunction with a Fuinjutsu formula. All these words caused nothing but headaches to the genin, but Tobirama never expected him to learn space-time ninjutsu at least before becoming a jounin. So far, the boy settled for learning beginner Fuinjutsu formulas. Storage seals and even explosion seals were amongst his range of knowledge for the moment and would certainly accompany him throughout the genin days. Tobirama spent some time tuning Naruto's calligraphy in one of their sessions together. For the moment, he didn't have money to purchase scrolls. That would have to wait until he performed C-ranked missions. Also, Tobirama instructed Naruto to spend some time in the library researching about the theory behind Fuinjutsu. Therefore, Naruto expected a few trips to the shinobi library after today's training. Looking at the clock, the boy sealed Tobirama's scroll and left his apartment. Choosing to simply walk towards the location, Naruto wondered about the road ahead of him, regarding the challenges and the expectations placed upon him by the very own Nidaime Hokage. It was one thing when said man was around to guide Naruto throughout the training, but now Naruto had to make do with the knowledge imparted on the scroll. What if the thought stopped as soon as those words initiated, and the boy couldn't help but shiver at the memory of Tobirama vividly explaining to him that thinking about the what-ifs was a complete waste of precious time. The man always enjoyed using those water whips of his. Training ground. Arriving on time, Naruto walked straight to his sensei, who was calmly smoking his cigarette with an aloof smile on his face. Ever since they became Team 10, Naruto's relationship with his second sensei slightly improved. The boy enjoyed their training sessions, even if he could not use his full arsenal of skills at the moment. In their spars, Naruto would use Taijutsu and Kenjutsu with a couple Shuriken Jutsu as well. Ninjutsu was limited to the usual 3, however, much to his internal chagrin. Aside from constant sparring with his sensei and his teammates, the latter always won by Naruto, their team got started on learning chakra control exercises. Asuma used this opportunity and passed the ball to Naruto. Since he had learned it, Asuma urged Naruto to teach the craft to Shikamaru and Hinata, showing the first signs of laziness in Naruto's book. Unsurprisingly, Hinata got it right on her third try. The Hyuga clan were prodigious in their use of chakra. The Jayuikan required precision more than anything else. Shikamaru was not bad, but he did test Naruto's patience by requiring 3 days to get to the top. However, the Nara clan were highly renowned for their intelligence, not their work ethic. His lazy teammate understood the concept the minute Naruto explained it. When applying theory into practice, however, Shikamaru just did not bother to apply himself 100%. As such, Naruto kept complaining the entire time, much to Hinata and Asuma's amusement. A couple more Taijutsu drills were run before the team would go to the mission room for those same old boring D-ranked missions. The boy could not complain much, considering that it was his main source of income, but sometimes he just wished to vent out his frustrations on the man who created these types of assignments. As per usual, the team grabbed their 2D-ranked missions for the day and quickly took care of that. Normally, Asuma would dismiss his team for the day, but today he had a different idea. At the barbecue place, he gathered his team for a nice barbecue dinner for some much-needed conversation. Well, it's been 4 weeks since we started, and I feel inclined to discuss a very important subject with all 3 of you. It is my job, as your sensei, to guide you and train you into becoming accomplished shinobi and kunoichi. However, that does not mean that I can simply choose what I believe is right for any one of you. You 3 have a great deal of different skills to choose from, and it's important to consider them all so that you can choose just which type of shinobi you will be in the future. For example, I chose to focus on training my ninjutsu affinities and to develop a unique fighting style using my trench knives. While it was adamant that I learn other skills as a jounin, I have always stayed true to my choices as a shinobi. All three genin nodded as the food arrived. Asuma continued his first lecture. That being said, I understand that both Hinata and Shikamaru have clan techniques to fall back on, but that doesn't mean you cannot learn different skills. In fact, I believe it's prudent, considering that your clans are very well known throughout the elemental countries. The Hyuga clan are powerful, but more so up close range fighting. Against a long range fighter, the Gyuikan is worthless. The shadow techniques of the Nara clan are also known. Hinata and Shikamaru nodded solemnly, both knowing bits and pieces about their fellow clan members dying because of said weaknesses. Troublesome, I understand that, sensei. Asuma showed an apologetic smile. The conversation was indeed important. So, I would like to hear from you first, Shikamaru. As a Nara, your intellect is your most cunning weapon. Your chakra control has improved, as has your taijutsu. I'm betting your father is instructing you in clan techniques. My clan jutsu has many uses and also a lot of different ways to use them. The enemy may know about them, but they can't know for sure what I will do. But then, I'm talking about enemies close to my level here. Asuma nodded at that. Shikamaru continued. Like you said, sensei, my mind is my most cunning weapon. So, I was thinking about skills to complement my clan jutsu, like genjutsu perhaps. Naruto remained quiet throughout the entire ordeal, savoring his meat instead. When he heard Shikamaru's choice, he couldn't help but applaud his choice. Who would have thought that the lazy ass would apply himself with such a demanding art? It required great chakra control, however, above his intellect. Asuma made a thinking noise after hearing Nara. Genjutsu is an interesting choice. You can use your clan techniques as a primary offense complemented by illusions. Not bad, I guess I can give you the basics and then perhaps ask a few favors from a specialist. Asuma actually believed it would be better if Shikamaru went for offensive techniques like taijutsu or even ninjutsu. Then, he flinched at the memory of a rather heated discussion he had with said specialist about the usage of genjutsu. Okay, good. Hinata, how about you? Upon receiving the spotlight of 3 sets of eyes, the timid girl flinched a little bit before rubbing her fingers together. Asuma frowned instantly at the display. He remembered his conversation with Kurenai about how Hyuga Hiashi treated his eldest daughter and that her shyness was a direct byproduct of how she was raised, especially after Hinata's mother perished. She was improving her confidence gradually and training with Naruto and Shikamaru, though. Both boys realized and made every effort in helping her ever since. Well, I was thinking about training in long-range skills, perhaps archery. She looked at both Naruto and Shikamaru for reassurance and relaxed upon seeing them smile and nod at her. Archery, huh? A fine idea, Hinata. With your Byakugan, you could be quite lethal from a distance. Most impressive. If you want, I can accompany you for the necessary supplies so that you can practice. I am sure your teammates will aid you, especially Naruto. If you are able to hit him while he's moving, then you're good to go. Naruto was smiling at the timid girl until that part. Asuma had an amusing expression on his face as he observed the quiet boy frowning at him. Boy, what do you think, I am a living target? I may be fast, but I don't like the thought of being hit by her arrows on a daily basis, you know. Hinata giggled at the display. This would be training for you too, in agility. With her Byakugan, her precision will no doubt be top-notch. Once the arrow flies from her bow, you will have little time to dodge. The man barked in laughter as Naruto mumbled incoherent cursing at him. Oh come on, Naruto, don't be like that. I am sure that Hinata here won't target your vital organs, so you are safe. If she is able to hit you, then that means that you're not fast enough, that's all. The grumbling never ceased. And to think I was beginning to like you, sensei. Asuma laughed at the comment. He was enjoying this team more than he thought he would. Okay, enough teasing. How about you, Naruto? Asuma asked the question, but from the inside, he was actually waiting for the answer in anticipation. The kid was gifted way more than a seasoned genin. His chakra control was excellent, his ninjutsu and taijutsu prowess were outstanding. Asuma had a prodigy in his hand, and Naruto could simply specialize in anything, he mused. Naruto, for his turn, had a clear choice in mind, but he also had side projects of his own, and none of those would be revealed until later on. The boy allowed himself a small second of amused thinking, though. Answering that he would want to specialize in space-time ninjutsu and fuinjutsu. Yeah, highly amusing would be his sensei's face. I would like to find out my ninjutsu affinity and master it. Asuma nodded with a smile. With his prowess on the battlefield, Asuma had no doubt that the boy would be a force to fear. Elemental ninjutsu, you say? That's quite advanced stuff, though with your chakra control, it's not impossible. Most shinobi take a lot of time to learn an element. Say sensei, how can I learn my element? Asuma was surprised at the sudden question. With time, the Hokage's suspicion lessened, but it was still there. Nonetheless, Asuma saw no point in not answering, considering that both Shikamaru and Hinata were also interested. He really wanted his students to learn ninjutsu to fall back on, and this was the perfect opportunity to instill said knowledge in their brains. Who knows, maybe Hinata and Shikamaru would take an interest. There is a special paper to determine one's affinity. Actually, I happen to have it with me. Hinata and Shikamaru, do you also want to know about yours? Depending on the amount of work I have to do, both Asuma and Hinata had giant water drops on the back of their heads. Naruto almost molded chakra for the water whip after the comment. All you have to do is simply focus your chakra on this piece of paper. I prefer to explain the rest after I see the results. Hinata, you go first. The Hyuga nodded and closed her eyes while holding the paper in her hand. When she opened her eyes, she felt water in her hand. Asuma nodded but said nothing, urging the lazy genin up next. Shikamaru's paper ignited and turned to ash. Naruto's paper split in two, and both halves became moist. Asuma hid his surprise at Naruto's result. His father would like to hear this. Okay, then, Hinata's affinity is towards water ninjutsu. Shikamaru has fire while Naruto, surprisingly so, has both wind and water affinities. Quite rare for a shinobi to have two affinities, I must say. Naruto showed a surprised face, followed by a happy one, while Hinata complimented him. Asuma allowed for the genin to partake in conversation over their elements while he pondered on what he had just discovered. His focus was on the Uzumaki enigma instantly. A jounin of his caliber had a lot of experience in knowing when someone is not telling the truth. Naruto's elation, however, at knowing about his elements struck him as quite odd, considering the Hokage's suspicion. If someone was indeed tutoring the boy from the shadows, then no doubt Naruto would have already found his elemental affinity, considering his potential. So Shikamaru wants to get genjutsu training, Hinata needs help with archery, and Naruto with elemental ninjutsu. I will see if I can pull some strings for genjutsu training. The archery material, I believe, won't be hard to find. I guess that there are at least 2 or 3 stores in Konoha. As for you, Naruto, I'm afraid I'll have to consult with the Hokage first about you learning elemental ninjutsu. The boy did frown, earning an amused smile from the sensei. Elemental ninjutsu's mastery is as hard as it is dangerous, especially if unsupervised. I believe the Hokage will accept it, though, considering who your sensei is. Asuma could not help but inflate his chest in pride at that. What do you mean? The boy felt his hopes of getting wind training draining by the second. He just did not consider that Asuma would need to run by the Hokage first. I'm considered one of the best wind users in all of Konoha, and since you have an affinity for it, there is no one better suited to teach you. Wow, really, that's awesome, sensei. Hinata giggled at the amount of energy and excitement displayed by Naruto, of course, none the wiser. The boy could not get his hopes up since the Hokage would have to approve first. However, if he managed to play his cards right, then he would be able to secure at least an adequate amount of training for his wind affinity. He already had water element training from the Nidaime. With this, at least in the ninjutsu department, he was all set. Eventually, the team left the restaurant and split towards their respective homes or the Hokage's office. The Hokage's office. Asuma just stared at his father while the old man made humming noises at the same time as he smoked his tobacco. Asuma wanted nothing more than to know his father's thoughts right away. He admitted to being quite enthused about the prospect of passing his craft to the boy. However, for that to happen, at least right now, he would need the Hokage's consent. In addition, there was the problem of how exactly the boy got so good and without apparent supervision. A slight vein pulsed from his forehead as he could see an amused smirk from his father. You know it irks me when you take this long to answer, right? Yes, as per Naruto's situation, it's indeed quite rare for him to have 2 affinities, wind and water. Though I guess it's only natural that he had inherited it from his father and his mother. If I recall, Minato had wind and Kushina had water, though neither of them chose to venture on their affinities. Minato's style was more in Fuinjutsu and space-time ninjutsu, while Kushina preferred close-range fighting with her chakra chains. Asuma, what can you tell about his chakra paper? Asuma frowned at the question, knowing all about what his father wanted to know. Indeed, the chakra paper allowed one to discover the elemental affinity. However, when a shinobi possesses a high affinity for an element, the paper behaves slightly differently. His wind is the dominant affinity, and quite strong one at that. His water element is not a weak affinity, though. Hinata's paper became moist, but the halves of his paper were soaked. Hiruzen caressed his chin. Interesting. Naruto-kun's future gets brighter and brighter. And how did he react to the news? He was excited, dare I say, that he was clueless before, which struck me as odd considering the suspicion that someone is training him. Hiruzen nodded. Indeed, perhaps we can attribute his surprising growth to him simply applying himself harder. It pains me to consider the possibility that Naruto-kun was hiding from me, but I had to look at the situation from all possible perspectives. Hiruzen allowed himself some time to look down in shame over his actions. When the boy was not doing well in the academy, he wished that the boy would apply himself. In the end, he did apply himself, but Hiruzen was caught wondering if someone did help him. In truth, all he did was believe that Naruto alone did not possess the necessary skills to grow as a shinobi. Well, the fact remains that Naruto did improve, and he did it by proving everyone wrong, even Hiruzen himself. Okay, Asuma, I'll allow you to start his wind training, but only the theory and elemental control exercises for the moment. Asuma nodded and got up from the chair. Would I be wrong in assuming that you're no longer interested in investigating his situation further? Hiruzen nodded with a resigned expression. Thus far, he has never demonstrated anything beyond exceptional skills in what was taught at the academy. The 2 chakra control exercises aside, his skills are centered in Taijutsu, Kenjutsu, and Shuriken Jutsu. If someone else were in fact tutoring him, he would certainly possess a more varied arsenal of skills already. Yes, there is no reason for us to keep looking anymore, Asuma. I can tell that he will only grow as a shinobi, and it's our duty to guide him. Good to know, because I'm enjoying my team more, and it would be a shame to disrupt their growth based on assumptions. See you, old man. Asuma saluted him with a wave before leaving in a shunshin. Hiruzen, now alone, stood over Naruto's shinobi records, pondering. If the boy showed as much prowess in the ninjutsu department as he had with Taijutsu, then by all accounts, Naruto would be a prodigy. In the same path as Minato's son was Kakashi's student Uchiha Sasuke. Hiruzen was optimistic already for this new generation, as all the clan heirs graduated. However, while all of the clan members showed promise in their families' respective abilities, Naruto and Sasuke were the only ones so far that displayed promise and overall skills. Naruto more so, considering that he had no one to assist him and still showed such promise. Right now, Sasuke had the slightest advantage because his family taught the lad fire ninjutsu. However, that will change once Naruto gets the hang of his element. Hiruzen had no doubt in his mind about the boy's immense talent. As such, he knew that the boy would catch on very quickly, even something as advanced as wind manipulation. The next day came, and the team began their morning routine like usual. After 2 hours of practice and spars, Asuma gathered his 3 genins. Okay team, we'll now go to the Hokage for a mission. Now before we do that, I would like to follow up on our conversation last night. Starting with you, Shikamaru. Since you are interested in learning Genjutsu, I asked a favor from another jounin who's specialized in the field. For now, she believed it prudent to first learn the theory behind the art of illusions, so here you go. Asuma tossed a scroll for the pineapple-haired genin. In that scroll, she detailed not only the basics, but also some chakra control exercises. Genjutsu requires great chakra control to perform, after all. Of course, Shikamaru would release a sigh in dismay thinking about the amount of work he would have to do. Man, is it too late to change my mind about this? I get the feeling it's going to be quite troublesome. Naruto snorted at that comment. It took him a lot of time and effort for him to be able to use Genjutsu. Naruto also had Nidaime to thank for giving input, so to speak. Asuma, for his turn, just smirked at Shikamaru's comment before moving on. Naruto, you wish to learn wind manipulation, so like Shikamaru, you'll start with the theory first, and then we shall move to the practical exercises. It will take plenty of time for you to start learning techniques, but you have plenty of time for that. From the inside, Naruto groaned, but from the outside, he smiled and took the scroll. He opened up the scroll and started reading it right away, blocking his attention to the outside world. Now with Hinata, before we go to the Hokage, we shall stop at the weapons store to purchase a set of bow and some arrows for you to practice. So, let's move on, shall we? The team then left the training ground with Naruto half walking and half focused on the scroll. Even if it was just theory, it was quite vividly described. As the team walked, Asuma saw another Jounin coming in front of him, actually doing the same thing as Naruto was doing, reading. Morning, Kakashi. As per the usual, the scarecrow Jounin simply waved him off, not taking his eyes away from his precious novel until he felt a blonde head bumping into his stomach. The Jounin looked down from his book to see two blue eyes looking at him with a forgiving look on his face. Haddock Kakashi admitted that he interacted very little with his sensei's son. Well, very little was an understatement, as the most they interacted was when Kakashi had to shadow the kid back in his Anbu days. Despite it all, he had heard stories of sensei's son from Asuma and from the Hokage at times. He could see from the kid's posture alone that the rumors were quite true. Asuma came up to him 2 days ago, stating how skilled Naruto was and that he wanted to measure his skills against one Uchiha Sasuke, the Rookie of the Year. At the time, Kakashi simply shrugged it off, saying that he would think about it. "Oh, sorry about that, Jounin-san, I got carried away reading." Kakashi smiled with a nod at Naruto before turning to Asuma. "Well, Asuma, about what you requested, I believe we can arrange something. Now excuse me, but I am late to meet with my team." Shikamaru was the one who noticed a man's eye shifting to Naruto. The bearded Jounin nodded with a smile on his face. Kakashi would never change his tardiness. Still, Kakashi had a keen eye for potential, and he definitely saw it in Naruto. Little to everyone's knowledge, Naruto also got to seize Kakashi briefly and now was looking at the man's leaving back. The Nidaime Hokage had imparted some sensing capabilities in his student. While not a born sensor, Tobirama taught him a couple of things by using his own chakra so that Naruto can learn more about his enemy before the fight begins. He did so with Asuma when they first met, and now he did it with this guy Kakashi. While Asuma had more chakra capacity than Kakashi, Kakashi's chakra felt denser. His chakra coils are perhaps more developed than Asuma's. "Asuma-sensei, what was it that this Kakashi said?" Shikamaru asked, earning an amused laughter from his sensei. "Oh, that's nothing, just a silly bet between Jounin. Now, let's keep moving." In no time, the team got inside a weapons shop and waited for Hinata to purchase the needed material for her craft. Shikamaru spotted a chair placed by the counter and immediately took a relaxing seat while Asuma helped Hinata with her choices. The person who worked at the store was with them the entire time, allowing the remaining members of the team to roam around the store's many items. Usually, he would not bother to come inside without a decent-looking hinge. He noticed that when he personally came to purchase something, the vendor would overcharge him. However, when he simply came in as a brunette individual, no whisker marks, and a Chunin vest, he even got discounts and promotions. Of course, he could simply go to the Hokage or his sensei to complain, but then he simply didn't want to bother himself with such nuisance. In addition, it was good practice, as most of these vendors had at least genin shinobi training. With everything taken care of, the team marched towards the Hokage Tower for their mission. Mission Assignment Office. The Hokage chose this specific day to join the Chunin board responsible for the mission assignments. It was not required of him, but he did so in order to address his shinobi personally from time to time. This morning, a few of the genin teams had already come by and left with their assignments. The rookie squads, however, have yet to appear. He knew that Kakashi's team would be the last, but Asuma and Kurenai's didn't usually take this long to show. He smiled, however, as soon as he heard footsteps approaching. It looked like Asuma's team came out first today. The genin came in front with Asuma in tow as they lined up in front of the Hokage. Team 10 reporting for duty. Asuma proudly announced, earning a nod from the Hokage. "Well, I was wondering when you'd appear in Asuma-kun. Your team usually comes much sooner. Okay, now Team 10, we have a long list of D-ranked missions here for you to choose." This was Naruto's cue to ignore the Hokage. Yes, he wanted nothing more than to complain right now to the old man about these so-called missions. Wastes of time, he considered them with the exception of the one he completed solo. An important part of Nidaime's training was that, although Naruto trained extensively in mastering his skills in combat, he had minimal opportunities to really test himself. Sure, training with his team was nice and all, but he barely worked against his teammates, and Asuma would never really push him. He needed opponents, he needed experience above all things. He stopped his wonderings when he heard the 2D ranked missions his sensei selected for the team. Oh, and by the way, Asuma said just as they were about to leave. I believe that my team is ready for C-rank missions. This took his team by surprise, even Naruto. Yumino Iruka looked perturbed. Are they now? Well, perhaps tomorrow, we can choose one. Asuma nodded before leaving the Hokage alone with his 2 Chunin in attendance. Hokage-sama, is it really wise to send them on C-rank missions so soon? They graduated last month. The Hokage smiled as he turned to his trusted Chunin. While it's true that they lack experience, it is also true that these 3 are quite gifted genin. Shikamaru is quite the genius and strategist of the team, and Hyuga Hinata has a solid grasp on her Byakugan. Last, but certainly not least, Naruto-kun is perhaps the most gifted genin of his generation. According to my son's reports, Naruto ranked very high in pretty much all there is for a fresh genin to know. I am sure that he will reach great heights in his career. That's precisely why I have allowed them to participate in C-rank missions. Naruto-kun is skilled, but like you said, he lacks experience. You can only improve yourself by facing adversities and coming out on top. Iruka almost felt ashamed after the lecture, but his worry remained. I know that they are gifted, but I can't help but feel it's too soon for them. The Hokage only smirked at the man. He had chosen wisely in placing Iruka at the academy. That goes to show how much you care for your students, Iruka. However, it is now time for them to venture outside the confines of our Great Walls and meet the world outside. Do not worry, though, I don't plan to send them alone. Team 10 was polite enough about D-rank missions. Nevertheless, it was quite clear in Naruto's visage that he greatly dislikes the subject. The other teams, however, will be more vocal about it, demanding a C rank. Iruka sighed at being defeated. He knew that Inuzuka Kiba would explode any day now, and Uchiha Sasuke, as well, demanded tougher assignments. Sometimes, he just wished to place some sense into the Jounins' heads for risking his students' lives needlessly. You plan to send 2 teams then? The Hokage nodded, greatly pleased by this young man's intellect. Yes, though I will defer to Kakashi's judgment beforehand. He had a feeling that Kurenai, being a rookie Jounin, will be more cautious about taking a C-ranked mission, and Kakashi had already talked to him about choosing a more practical approach to his teachings than simply drilling theoretical subjects to his genin. While Hiruzen did not believe in its efficiency, it was still a valid method of teaching and has produced fine results. If memory serves him correctly, the Yondaime Hokage opted for this very approach on his own team. The next day, as expected, both teams stood by the Hokage at the mission office. Well, since both Asuma and Kakashi considered their teams ready for a C-ranked mission, I have decided to accept their suggestion. Each team had their own reactions to the news. Inuzuka Kiba looked at Sasuke, and both shared a smile and determination. Sakura looked like she was scared, but tried desperately to hide it. Naruto could see that she took a small step closer to Sasuke, to which he turned his eyes in secret irritation. Shikamaru simply muttered his famous words, while Hinata was clearly in doubt of herself, though she smiled when Naruto placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. Her confidence issues sure diminished, but it would take time to vanish completely. After some time, Hiruzen continued. However, instead of issuing a mission to each of the teams, I have decided to send both teams on a single C-ranked mission. The Hokage was about to continue when Kiba voiced his protest. Hey, we don't need these pansies, they will just be slowing us down. The Inuzuka heir was wise enough in suddenly shutting his trap when the Hokage looked sternly at him, followed by a small increase in chakra. Kakashi cited his student's outburst and apologized to the Hokage on behalf of the Inuzuka. Of course, not before bonking the fiery kid in the head for his behavior in front of the Hokage. Naruto, for his turn, kept quiet and in awe at the quick but direct method utilized by the Sandaime to instill order. In a way, it reminded him of the Nidaime Hokage when Naruto acted similarly to Kiba just now. Still, Kiba was lucky. Tobirama had no qualms about getting physical, and by physical, he meant water whips. There was one time the man even used a water bullet on him, an incident that Naruto still painfully remembered to this day. It was the day he learned never to piss a cage off. Now, as I was saying, I will send both teams on this C-ranked mission. It consists of protecting a civilian from thieves and bandits as he travels back to his homeland in Wave Country. Tazuna, please come in. From the door came an old man holding an alcohol canteen. Tazuna was a gray-haired, bespectacled man with a large beard and dark eyes. He wore a sleeveless V-neck shirt with an obi, pants, and a pair of sandals. He also carried a towel around his neck and wore a pointed hat on his head. Kiba had to block his nose of the heavy smell of alcohol that came from this man. Tazuna looked at the two teams with heavy scrutiny and frowned at what he saw. What is the meaning of this Hokage? I hired shinobi to protect me, not small children barely off their diapers. That blonde shrimp over there, you can't possibly convince me he's a shinobi. Naruto heard snickers obviously coming from Kiba. While his height wasn't saying much, the old man, their client, was pushing. Now, Naruto could think of many things to do in order to prove that he is a shinobi. Of course, many of the possibilities included skills that he just could not reveal yet. That said, he had settled for something more subtle. With a slight flick of his wrist, earning narrowed eyes from those who managed to follow his movements, a kunai traveled fast to the canteen that the client was holding. In less than a second, the kunai went straight through the canteen, splashing all the alcohol at the old man's instantly sobered expression. Kiba had the decency to fall on his butt on the floor as the kunai passed mere inches from his nose. Sasuke looked at the blonde in alarm, not remembering him being that good before. Shikamaru, for his turn, simply sighed in dismay, while Hinata covered her mouth in surprise. Apparently, Naruto didn't like being bullied based on appearance alone. It matters little whether you believe I'm a shinobi or not in the end, all it takes is that kunai going straight at your neck. Asuma simply scratched his head in embarrassment for his genin. Ah, Naruto, we can't attack the clients, you know. He was used to seeing such speeds in their spars, unlike Kakashi and the Hokage who bore first witness to the kid's skill. Naruto settled for a smirk but bowed towards the client. My apologies for attacking you, Tazuna-san. I just felt the need to convince you that I'm more than ready to protect you against thieves and bandits. The client hesitantly nodded, though he felt like the kid was placing a knife inches from his neck. The Hokage, taking control of the situation, cleared his throat and addressed the two teams. Okay, moving on. This is a C-rank mission consisting of protecting Tazuna throughout his travel back to Wave Country. The mission will commence tomorrow, dismissing all of you. Hiruzen felt the need to talk to Naruto, but he figured that Asuma could do it for him. The way Naruto threw that kunai, however, got the Hokage thinking. He would expect such mastery coming from a high-level chunin, or even a jounin, not from someone who recently graduated. Naruto told him some time ago that he did nothing but train and study all day after the academy. Considering what he had just seen, it very well looked like his training bore excellent fruit. Hiruzen quickly activated his all-seeing ball for what was about to happen. With the teams, everyone found it strange that, after leaving the Hokage's office, the jounin ushered both teams to follow them towards a more secluded training ground. After arriving at the training ground, Asuma announced their intentions, as he knew that Kakashi was far too lazy. Okay, I'm betting you all are wondering why Kakashi and I decided to join you six together. Tomorrow all of you will embark on a C-ranked mission. Not only that, but you will also be performing missions with someone you know next to nothing about. In time, you all will participate in missions with other shinobi, so it is imperative you learn how to work well with others aside from your genin team. Now, we shall use today in order for each team to get to know the other. With that said, we shall start with individual spars and then move on to team drills. Asuma ignored Shikamaru's complaint and Kiba's narcissistic boost of confidence. We shall start with the individual spars. Hinata will be first against Sakura, then Shikamaru against Kiba, and lastly Naruto against Sasuke. Kakashi and I will monitor the fights, so nothing too extreme, as we have an important mission tomorrow. As Hinata and Sakura moved to the center of the clearing, the rest gave them space. Sasuke, however, kept looking at Naruto the entire time. Okay, Hinata and Sakura, are you ready? Asuma started the fight. As soon as the spar initiated, Sakura took the offense. She remembered how timid and shy Hinata was at the academy and knew that she had a shot to show to Sasuke how great she was. However, while Hinata never enjoyed going on the offensive in fights, it did not belittle her skills in Taijutsu. Sakura ran a frontal line and attempted to sidestep in order to attack Hinata from the left. With great finesse and style, Hinata simply evaded Sakura's rather slow assault and took advantage of the opening in Sakura's unprotected right side. A heavy palm laced with chakra, and Sakura flinched in pain, not knowing that Hinata had just closed her tenketsu. Sakura tried to stand and give more of a fight, but she just could not control her chakra in order to use the Academy 3 ninjutsu she knew. Another frail attempt at Taijutsu failed, with Hinata hitting the stomach this time, thus ending the spar rather quickly. "Are you okay with Sakura?" Hinata opened her tenketsu and got her up, earning a pained smile from Sakura. "Wow, you're really strong." Hinata the Hyuga blushed at the praise, while Naruto looked ready to go bloody murder on the pink-haired girl. He would imagine that she would show more after 1 month. "Alright, now is my turn to prepare to lose Shikamaru." Kiba and Shikamaru now stood face to face with each other. Kiba looked smug, while Shikamaru couldn't look more bored as he grabbed a kunai and held it. Naruto could not help but smile at Kiba's clueless smirk. The Jounin also noticed it, but Kakashi simply chose to read his book to save him embarrassment. With an amused smile, Asuma announced the beginning of the fight. Kiba, still smiling like an idiot, prepared to attack only to realize that he just couldn't move his body. Not even Akamaru could move, considering that the little puppy was also caught in the same technique. The Inuzuka remained baffled and snarled at the Nara. "What did you do to me, bastard?" Shikamaru only sighed in dismay. He didn't feel like explaining much. "Why don't you look down and tell me what happened?" Kiba did as instructed and indeed saw that his shadow was connected to Shikamaru's. Suddenly, Shikamaru extended the arm that he was holding the kunai, forcing Kiba to do the same, except that his hand was holding nothing of the sort. A couple of steps later, Shikamaru stopped walking. The kunai stopped inches from Kiba's chest and would keep coming. The Inuzuka snarled at losing, but conceded. Kakashi felt the need to explain to his clueless student. The Nara clan specializes in manipulating their shadow. It has many uses. One of them involves binding the opponent by capturing your shadow. Kiba listened to his sensei speak while Naruto and Sasuke got into position against each other. The rest already gave the boys some room. In Sakura and Kiba's mind, Naruto would no doubt lose. He may have shown improvement in school, but he had graduated in the middle of the class, while Sasuke was the top student. Meanwhile, Shikamaru and Hinata doubted that Naruto showed his best at the academy, merely showing enough to graduate. It was not to say that Naruto was stronger than Sasuke, only that one could not base Naruto's skills according to his display up until 1 month ago. Kakashi and Asuma stood side by side as they silently conversed with one another. The first 2 fights were indeed for the teams to know each other, but this last fight was actually a bet formed between them as to who was the strongest genin of this year. Sasuke, meanwhile, looked at his opponent and remembered how fast he moved back to the Hokage's office. It had been a month since he last saw Naruto fight, and back then, it was completely different. Sasuke Uchiha's blood pumped inside his veins, and he felt excitement over the upcoming battle. If he improved this much, then Sasuke may have found a worthy adversary to test his skills against. Kiba was okay in the Taijutsu department, but Inuzuka just could not offer Sasuke more than a few minutes of a fair fight. Naruto, for his turn, looked at Sasuke while remembering what the Nidaime said about the Uchiha clan. Even if Tobirama focused more on the Sharingan, he did share some intel on their way of thinking and how they behave in the battlefield. Their Taijutsu style focused mainly on anticipating the opponent's movements. Even without the Sharingan, the Uchiha had trained their eyes and body to adapt according to the enemy. That being said, it will always appear that an Uchiha is faster than he actually is. Aside from that, though, Naruto saw this as an amazing opportunity to gain experience. Asuma took a couple steps further and announced the beginning of the fight. Naruto went on the offensive immediately, hurling a group of shuriken at impressive speeds. Sasuke reacted instinctively, not expecting a long-range assault and spar. He evaded the projectiles and charged at the Uzumaki, using chakra to increase his speed. He was within Naruto's guard in less than 2 seconds before aiming a brutal punch at Naruto's face. Naruto, for his turn, quickly turned his body and redirected Sasuke's punch with his arm. He followed up with a side kick, but Sasuke managed to evade by keeping his momentum. Using the blonde's own move, Sasuke quickly grabbed a couple of shuriken and threw them at Naruto. From such close proximity, the shuriken was unavoidable, piercing his arm and stomach. Naruto flinched in pain for a second before smiling as smoke surrounded him. Sasuke, instead, pierced a log instead. Naruto came from behind, but he was not alone. By his side, 5 bunchins mirrored his every move. Sasuke quickly threw shuriken at them, dispelling the bunchins. However, since they were too close, Sasuke could not avoid a direct punch to the stomach by the real Naruto. The sound of the impact made everyone in the vicinity wince as Sasuke lost his entire breathing capability for a short period. He had to move quickly as Naruto was not done. Jumping back a few times, he managed to create a distance to breathe again. He had never taken a hit that strong before, and the way Naruto moved was a lot more coordinated and precise than back at the academy. Getting a new resolve, the Uchiha charged once more and started a close-range fight with Naruto, neither showing dominance over the other. Their movements were faster than Genin level. The spectators, at least the Genin, were surprised, or in Kiba's case, speechless. He could barely follow those movements. Sakura simply stopped trying altogether. Indeed, Naruto is quite skilled, as you said, Asuma. The bearded Jounin smiled while lighting up a cigarette. So is Sasuke, but Naruto normally moves faster. Remember that he has complete mastery of his chakra, but so far he is not using it to fight Sasuke. Kakashi looked at Asuma from the corner of his eyes and focused on his old sensei's son, and indeed Asuma was right. Back to the fight, Sasuke found that, at each passing second, that Naruto was slowly but surely increasing his pace, as well as the strength behind the blows. To compensate, Sasuke focused more chakra into his limbs, but he could feel his capacity diminishing, whereas Naruto barely looked fazed. One aspect of the Uchiha's rules of combat is observation. Sasuke had to be observant in order to capture the minuscule details during a fight. That was why he was surprised upon seeing Naruto's facial expression during their fight. Usually, he appeared more carefree, as if the entire world couldn't faze him. Now, though, it was the complete opposite. He looked completely and utterly focused on the battle. His eyes locked onto Sasuke's body movement. Sasuke flinched when Naruto's kick came up too fast for him to evade, forcing Sasuke to block it with his arms. The power behind the strike was too much for his arm to handle. Naruto wasn't deterred and quickly flipped to Sasuke's exposed side, stopping his sword inches from piercing Sasuke's kidney. Even if this was just a spar, this was the first time, since that fateful day, that Sasuke had felt like he was going to die. Surely, had Naruto been an enemy, he would be. It was a clean victory from Naruto, according to Asuma. Naruto had already displayed such tenacity while fighting him, so he was not surprised. The others, however, could only gawk at the display. Kiba felt so out of place right now and couldn't come with a proper retort. Congratulations, Sasuke, it seems you managed to awaken it. Both Kakashi and Sasuke were greatly surprised at what Naruto just said. The blonde smiled and placed his sword in front of Sasuke's eyes. Sasuke gasped upon seeing that his eyes were now red with a single time in each eye. One fight with this guy, and Sasuke already activated his Sharingan. Granted that Sasuke had yet to use any ninjutsu, but from what he had witnessed, Naruto would not be fazed by the techniques he knew. Right now, his Uchiha blood was pumping like crazy, and his heart was beating faster than ever. He vowed to kill his brother, and Naruto will be the one to aid him in reaching Itachi's level. After Naruto was dismissed by Asuma, he went straight home to read more of the scroll containing wind manipulation. The boy at first assumed that the material wouldn't help him much, considering that he had already performed the 2 exercises necessary to use wind ninjutsu. He had already sliced a leaf and the waterfall. However, he later realized that Asuma-sensei did know his stuff about the craft. The scroll contained a more practical approach to the use of wind ninjutsu, of course, detailing the 2 exercises, but also what the shinobi must envision in his mind to further increase its potential. The thought of picturing 2 blades grinding with each other until both edges were as thin as possible was brilliant. Immediately grabbing his sword, Naruto focused on his wind chakra through the metal before seeing the blade humming with transparent blue energy. As soon as Naruto incorporated Asuma's tips, though, he could see the wind energy accelerate around the steel, and even the humming noise increased. Naruto would simply keep on with it until he was comfortable with the feeling. As he closed his eyes, Naruto meditated on the feel of his chakra right now. It was imperative, according to Tobirama Sensei, that Naruto would use the exact amount of chakra needed for each technique. Of course, the theory of chakra was pretty much hammered inside his brain, but the Nidaime did say that the possibility of him running out of chakra was quite slim. Still, he carried on with the skill as he pictured wind razor-sharp chakra passing through his developing Tenketsu. Once he had found the necessary amount, Naruto stopped the flow of chakra as he placed his sword back in the scabbard. The scroll had also indicated a rather exciting exercise. So far, Naruto had known only a technique that either accelerated projectiles, Ripusu, and one that sent a gust of wind to the opponent, Tatapa. But he knew from Nidame's scroll that wind techniques also had cutting and slicing characteristics. Asuma's scroll explained how to use this specific ability. To slice objects using only your chakra. By using both hands, Naruto would have to position his hands on both sides of the object and focus wind chakra in the middle. Quite like the leaf cutting exercise, but much more concentrated and precise. It is certainly detrimental to learn this before attempting one of the techniques. Taking a look off the scroll for now, Naruto looked outside the window of his apartment and realized that it was already nighttime. He was now debating between going out for a late dinner or heating up something inside and going to sleep early. Of course, he had a mission tomorrow morning, so going out was ill-advised. So, Naruto opted to heat up some pre-made food he received from Kasuka-chan and went to sleep soon afterward. Of course, it was no ramen, but the kind old man's cooking was considered a blessing for a young man growing up with little to no skill in the kitchen. Barbecue place. Inside the barbecue place, the three Jounin sensei were having a nice dinner together to discuss some things together. It was the bet that Asuma made with Kakashi. If Naruto won against Sasuke, then Kakashi would buy Asuma dinner. Kurenai just went along for the ride, much to Kakashi's dismay. It was the first time that the famous Sharingan no Kakashi ever lost a bet, and the woman Jounin wouldn't miss this opportunity to hear all about it. As such, after placing the orders and a good old sake bottle for the table, Kakashi and Asuma turned to explain to her the contents of the wager and how one Uzumaki Naruto managed to win a spar against Uchiha Sasuke in close range using nothing but Tai, Kenjutsu, and the regular 3 jutsu taught at the academy. Okay Asuma, now it's your turn to explain to me exactly what you taught Naruto. The bearded Jounin was feeling rather smug at the sight of a petty-looking Kakashi. Kurenai was also basking in the feeling, despite not being a part of the wager. Here is the thing, all I ever did with him was a light spar every now and then in between team practices. Kakashi's only visible eye looked bored, though Asuma knew enough to know that the silver-haired Jounin was skeptical. Despite not showing any extraordinary skill, I could see that he was using chakra in his moves throughout the fight and not like a genin. Hell, I've seen Chunin with less level of control than him. Asuma nodded and grabbed a piece of meat from the grill as Kurenai offered her insight into the conversation. The Kunoichi Jounin's team had 2 genin that had adequate chakra control. Ino and Shino were drilled in the art by their families, but Chaoji still required some advanced tutoring in that aspect. A genin with high-level chakra control is indeed impressive. Nowadays, people only tend to focus on extravagant techniques. It's nice to see someone thinking outside the norm, but I didn't see this information in his file. Indeed, because of his high chakra capacity, Naruto needed to focus more on chakra control, though he had already nailed both exercises by the time he graduated. Both Kurenai and Kakashi whistled at that. Okay, then considering his chakra capacity and high chakra control, he may be an ninjutsu powerhouse, then. Kurenai frowned at Kakashi's input as she filled her plate with some grilled vegetables. Men always let on straight to ninjutsu and pretty much forget about everything else. I'd say that someone with high-level chakra control could be an all-rounded shinobi. Certainly, Naruto's education could consider other ventures. Asuma smiled at the argument. Of course, none of them were any wiser that the boy already had a much better sensei than all of the 3 combined and was learning tons of different skills that will certainly benefit him in the future. They knew that Naruto was a blank canvas and could pretty much take any path he so desired. Well, he did mention that he wants to master his element, which is wind by the way. But when I tested his affinities, I was surprised to see that not only he had a wind affinity, but water as well. Not to mention that he is highly skilled in Kenjutsu, Taijutsu, and Shuriken Jutsu. That pretty much made Kurenai pause, and Kakashi wondered what happened to his sensei's son that made him so powerful out of the blue. It was Kurenai who pondered aloud what all 3 thought. A genin fresh out of the academy with excellent chakra control, with more than average skills in Tai and Kenjutsu, and 2 elemental affinities. Do you have a prodigy in your hands, Asuma? The bearded Jounin could only nod. No doubt, he knew that when word about Naruto's skills came to light, he would attract the interest of many Jounin in Konoha willing to teach the kid. And looking at both Kurenai and Kakashi, well, Kakashi managed to hide it well, but Kurenai was practically salivating at the future prospect of such a shinobi. If he is this good right now, Imagine how he would be in the future. And Kurenai realized that he could very well learn Genjutsu as well as be an ninjutsu specialist. With dual affinities, she knew that Naruto would bend towards the ninjutsu department, but with good chakra control, he could also learn Genjutsu. Perhaps Sasuke may not be a suitable rival for him after all. Kakashi said, admitting to himself that even Sasuke's Sharingan may not be enough. Asuma allowed himself to smirk at that, though. When he sparred with Naruto, he was using Chunin-level skills. The rest of the dinner then resumed with the three jounin talking about other mundane things before all three went to their respective homes, as Kakashi and Asuma both had a joint mission tomorrow. Next day. When Naruto awakened the next day, he realized he still had quite some time before he was due to present himself at the gates. Usually, he would take this opportunity for some training, and he decided to do just that. This happens to be the first time he would be leaving the village, and it was quite exciting. He would venture into wave country, as such, it would be prudent to get into some training regarding Suiton manipulation. Getting a quick breakfast, and to make sure that he had everything he needed for the mission sealed into a storage scroll, Naruto opened the door to his apartment as he watched the sun about to rise on the horizon. Normally, this time most in the village would be asleep with the exception of those that had a nightlife sort to speak. Considering the rough neighborhood that he lived in nowadays, Naruto had met the occasional drunk and even some gang members, making quite a fuss this time around. As he jumped towards the nearby buildings, the blonde genin had expanded his senses throughout the village and felt the reduced number of shinobi that were finishing the usual rounds around the village. He smiled upon practically seeing two green blurs jumping together towards Kami. He never had met them in person, but Naruto could feel their enthusiasm every day since he usually awakened at the same time. It didn't take him long to reach the cave where he had first found his sensei, the Nidaime Hokage, and where he trained for 3 straight years. Every time he came here, he expected to hear the grunt and complaint from the man. It was actually a nostalgic sight as he got mesmerized by the cave's reflection from the crystalline waters. If the boy closed his eyes and focused, he could feel his sensei's presence with his customary frown. As such, Naruto had allowed himself a couple of minutes of simply doing nothing, as he remembered with fondness the experience of being taught by such a legend. If you waste more time just standing there, you will be sorry. Naruto was surprised for a moment as he looked around, only to remember that he was alone inside the cave. Letting out a nervous laughter at the memory, he stepped on the waters until he was in the middle of the cave lake. Focusing on the ram seal, Naruto closed his eyes as he went through every and all Suiton manipulation exercise he was taught. As such, first, he focused chakra throughout the lake and started swirling the current until he created a whirlpool around him. He would first increase the speed of the spinning vortex and then reduce it as he felt his connection to the water, just like his sensei did with no effort whatsoever. Naruto remembered the first time he saw Nidaime doing this exercise. He was simply crossing his arms with a look of pure boredom as he commanded the water to do his every bidding. Thus, Naruto, with his eyes closed, pictured his sensei standing there by his side with his arms crossed and a proud smile on his face. "Sensei, despite not seeing you, I can still feel your presence." Going up a notch, Naruto then focused on a different set of hand seals and finished with the bird hand sign as water goblets lifted from the lake, surrounding his body like suspended grenades in mid-air. Of course, being a C-ranked mission, Naruto didn't expect to be pushed enough to consider revealing his hidden ninjutsu knowledge. However, it would be a disservice to the Nidaime if he wasn't prepared for the eventual necessity. Considering the mastery he had in Suiton, Naruto could truly use at least some of what he learned if either him or his teammates were pushed. As he opened his eyes, Naruto allowed himself to relax his chakra coils somewhat as he saw the water molecules in the air slowly falling back to the lake as if it was raining inside the cave. Each droplet caused small ripples on the water as Naruto then left the water towards the cave's exit and then towards the location where he would meet his team and Kakashi's team as well. The gate. Upon arriving at the designated place, Naruto saw Sasuke there already. "Hi there, Sasuke." The Uchiha in question was with both his hands inside his pockets as he turned to see Naruto approach. The blonde genin found it humorous that Sasuke was looking at him with the Sharingan activated. "Naruto." A short but formal greeting as Sasuke turned to look around once more, perhaps getting adapted to his new tool. Quickly extending his senses throughout the region, Naruto couldn't sense anyone approaching, so he just took a seat close to a tree as he observed Sasuke looking around. So, how did Sasuke turn to Naruto's question? How does the Sharingan work, exactly? Sasuke, though, had simply smirked at the question. Why scared that you will be beat next time we fight? Naruto snorted at the comment. Tobirama sensei did comment about the Uchiha clan's drive to constantly get into provocations. Well, Naruto was truly looking forward to testing himself against the Sharingan, so it was fair game. Oh, I know about bits and pieces. You would be amazed at what some books and scrolls in the library say about the clans of Konoha. I was more interested in knowing about how it feels to have such a tool. Sasuke asked as he deactivated his eyes. It still consumed too much chakra to use for longer periods. I'm still adapting to it. As I look around, I can perceive movement before the person starts moving. Also, there are traces of chakra saturated in the air. Naruto hummed in recognition, and Sasuke found himself feeling strange at receiving recognition from him. To this day, Sasuke never bothered acknowledging anyone in the village, not even the Jounins. He had a target in mind, and nothing in this village would deter him from getting stronger for the single purpose of killing his brother and avenging his clan. Amazing, indeed. Does it hurt? But, strangely, finding out about Naruto's skills made Sasuke strangely yearn to compete with him. Somehow, the knowledge of being acknowledged by a rival made his mind focus on something else aside from Itachi. Only when I use it for longer periods of time. I see. Well, I will admit that I'm quite eager to see your improvement. Naruto got up and dusted his clothes as Sasuke could see others approaching. He observed as Naruto greeted Shikamaru and Hinata. Sasuke keenly observed how at ease Naruto was in his posture as he conversed with his team. He could see confidence exuding from the genin, and it intrigued him greatly. Good morning Sasuke-kun. Hi there Sasuke. The Uchiha then saw Sakura and Kiba also arriving together with Akamaru on top of Kiba's head. The two Jounins followed and last accompanied by the client Tazuna, who was once more seen carrying a canteen with sake inside. Kakashi was nominated by the Hokage as the mission leader, so he quickly explained the drill towards Wave Country. Considering Hinata's Byakugan and Kiba's effective nose, Inuzuka would take points with Sasuke. Shikamaru and Sakura would be close to the client in the middle, and Hinata would be in the rear with Naruto acting as her backup. Meanwhile, the Jounin would simply observe the genin as they perform the protection mission. Considering it was a C-ranked assignment, neither believed that the group would be attacked. The most they would find were thugs and low-life criminals. So, the group cleared at the gates their departure, and each genin fell into their assigned position while progressing in a civilian pace. Along the way, Naruto paid very little mind to the conversation shared between Sakura and the client. The girl was actually asking about the existence of ninja villages in Wave Country. It was baffling the lack of focus, but Naruto couldn't simply allow himself to have these feelings. The rest of the teams were more or less focused at the very least in their respective assignments. Kiba and Sasuke were up front, scouting up ahead with Kiba's nose. Shikamaru appeared aloof, but Naruto knew that he didn't need to worry about the Nara genin. His eyes may show boredom, but he was looking around for traps and eventual opposition. Hinata was activating her Byakugan every now and then and reporting to the Jounin her findings or lack thereof. As they progressed towards Wave Country, Naruto could better feel the humid climate in the area. As he extended his senses throughout the air, he found that his range of sensory ability increased. After a while of walking, the teams passed through a puddle of water on the ground. Neither of the genin appeared to notice, though the Jounin looked towards each other and nodded. All six genin turned abruptly to the sound of movement behind them as they saw a chain filled with small blades coming out of nowhere and wrapping it in both Asuma and Kakashi, slicing their bodies in half before they even got the chance to see what was going on. The frightened look in their faces caught most by surprise. The rest of the genin, though, had mixed reactions as they saw what appeared to be two identical-looking shinobi with gray capes, breeding masks, and claw gauntlets joined together by every chain who shredded the Jounin's bodies. "Huh, easy, 2 down already." Their metallic voice reached everyone's ears, sending chills up their spine. Shikamaru was the first and extended his shadow before the two opponents attempted to attack the client and kill him as well. The old man was terrified to his very bone, and Sakura wasn't faring much better herself, having seen two Jounin falling victim just like that. The demon brothers saw the shadow coming their way and evaded it, however Sasuke took the opportunity and charged with his Sharingan activated. Naruto noticed that the Uchiha's speed increased as Sasuke managed to slice the chain in half with his kunai. Kiba and Akamaru went straight to the one on the right, who after being separated by Sasuke's attack, managed to dodge the Inuzuka's attack and overpower Kiba's Taijutsu with his own gauntlet. Akamaru came to his partner's aid and kept the demon brother occupied before Sasuke came in and joined the fray. "Let's go Hinata, we'll take the one on the left." Naruto was already moving with extreme agility with his sword drawn. Hi. Hinata followed right behind Naruto with her Byakugan activated. Shikamaru saw both Sakura and the client shaking in fear and sighed as he stood by to protect them. Sasuke did quick work of his foe with Taijutsu and the use of kunai to prevent the claws from reaching him, as well as Kiba's. Naruto and Hinata coordinated well in facing the other one. With Naruto's Kenjutsu and Hinata's Byakugan strikes, the other demon brother was being pushed quite severely while trying to figure out what was going on. When they started this, the first targets were the Jounin, who were killed instantly. And now these genin were keeping them on their toes. The moment of indecision was enough for Naruto to pierce the man's stomach with his sword and Hinata to land some fierce Gyuuken strikes on his Tenketsu points, shutting down his entire chakra network instantly. No sooner than the last demon brother dealt with Asuma and Kakashi appeared looking no worse for wear. Kakashi had his hands in his pockets and looked bored, while Asuma applauded his team for their efficiency. Everything happened in less than a minute and Sakura looked at the two Jounin, clueless about what was going on, which Shikamaru breathed a little more deeply at having to explain. Relaxing Sakura, they used Kawarimi as soon as the chain was pulled. "You don't remember seeing blood after they were attacked, did you?" Kakashi smiled at that and Asuma looked around for the two down Chunin on the ground. The one from Sasuke had bruises all over the place and the one that Naruto and Hinata dealt with was bleeding profusely from Naruto's sword strike. Pretty soon, this one would bleed to death, but Asuma wouldn't mourn his death. No, he was looking at both Naruto and Hinata and could see that they had performed flawlessly. "Naruto, Hinata, congratulations on handling him." The two genin turned to see their sensei and Hinata blushed slightly at the praise. She was just following Naruto's directive and double-teaming with him. However, now that the adrenaline left her system, she had just realized that she had beat a Chunin missing ninja. "Yes, Hinata was great, sensei. What did I tell you? Your father doesn't know squat." Asuma chuckled at the boy for lifting the girl's spirits up. Hinata has come a long way after joining them. "Thank you Naruto-kun." Despite no longer seeing the same Naruto from before anymore, Hinata still felt safe around him and the blonde had always lifted her spirits. Shikamaru soon approached them as well. Kakashi, for his part, was handling his team and was now busy berating Kiba for attacking head-on. "Kiba, it appears you got yourself poisoned." Inuzuka looked frightened at his sensei, while Sasuke released a sigh in embarrassment for his teammate. Sakura looked frantic at that. "Easy there, Sakura, remember to breathe." "Sensei, you were killed back then I saw your body being shredded." Kakashi now realized that perhaps his actions may have scarred a fresh out of the academy genin, but the others seemed fine, though. "Don't worry Sakura, it would take a lot more than mere Chunin to defeat us. Now Kiba, come here, and we'll take care of the poison with a bit of heads up, though. It will hurt a bit, so bear it with me." The Inuzuka, though, was attempting to show some bravado, but failing miserably. I can take some pain, sensei that hurts. Why didn't you warn me?" Kiba started boasting about his pain tolerance, but then flinched once Kakashi used a kunai in key places on Kiba's hand to release the accumulated blood with the poison before it could spread to his body. Kakashi found it humorous the look of pain and jumping eye sockets from the Inuzuka, while Akamaru was whimpering on the ground, possibly in embarrassment for his partner just like Sasuke. After ridding the poison, Kakashi asked Sakura to close his wound and wrap it up while he would join Asuma in checking the enemies' bodies. The bearded Jounin, for his part, had Naruto and Hinata's help to close the rest of their tenketsus and strap them in the trees. "You're good here, Asuma?" Asuma nodded as he looked back at the Chunin. "Both of them are unconscious right now, but you can question Tazuna about it." The old man was silent so far, simply busy enough to try and slow his own beating heart when the two Jounin looked at him accusingly. "What do you want to ask me?" Kakashi snorted and turned to the enemy Chunin as he talked to Tazuna We did what we did because we wanted to see just who they were after. It wouldn't be any of the genin, since they are fresh out of the academy. Then, it became clear that they were after you. You must thank Hokage-sama for adding a second team to this mission, or else I fear the consequences would be more severe than one of our genin getting poisoned. Tazuna flinched as he sensed a silver-haired jounin now looking at him. The old man was feeling his heart beat faster as he felt his life in this man's hands, but Kakashi was not finished in roasting Tazuna. You deliberately withheld information from Konoha by asking for a C-ranked protection assignment. Said action alone allows me to simply abandon you right here. The rest of the genin all stood by as they heard Kakashi grill the client. Naruto, though, couldn't help but noticed that Asuma-sensei had a slight for him, though, all that counted, as replaying the fight he had just now. This was actually his first fight outside of training. Of course, Tobirama-sensei would always fight him using extreme killing intent, but it was not the same. This time, Naruto faced an enemy in battle and felt the rush of battle firsthand. He was focused on his movements, though. The Chunin he battled against, with Hinata's help, didn't even have Sasuke's level of agility. Also, Naruto managed to target the precise points that Tobirama-sensei instructed him to go for that would instantly debilitate his opponent. He didn't hesitate even for a second, which counted as a big win in his book. Naruto, no matter how much you train, no matter how strong you become at the end of the day, a simple kunai can still kill you. Never drop your guard on a mission, and never underestimate the enemy. The words of his sensei still echoed in his brain now more than ever. I'm sorry. He then turned to Tazuna as he turned to explain the truth to Kakashi. My country is poor. We are struggling just to get by. They are counting on me to build a bridge that will finally link our country to the mainland. And Gato has killed everyone that amounted to something in opposition to his plans. I'm the only one left to save my country. I need protection. I can't come home alone, or else I will be killed for sure. My grandson will be without a grandfather. My daughter Kami, what's going to happen to her? Please, Shinobi. I know that I lied about the mission, but I don't have enough money for a higher ranked mission. Kakashi and Asuma heard the man's plea with a tough enough face, but on the inside, they were struggling to keep it together as neither could see deceit in Tazuna's voice. Gato, you mean Gato of Gato Industries, the shipping magnate? Tazuna nodded at Kakashi's question with a downed visage. Yes, he had killed my son-in-law, the man who first dared to oppose Gato's plans. He will certainly kill me for sure. Tazuna briefly looked upward as he heard Kakashi's sigh. Excuse us for a second, will ya? The old man nodded as he saw the two grown-up shinobi walking away to discuss. The genin, in the meantime, were busy tending to Kiba's wounds. Sakura had done a fine job patching his hand, but the wound from the kunai was extensive in order to fully remove the poison. Sakura and Hinata were the ones that inspected the wound. Sakura had some knowledge on first aid kits, and Hinata was using her Byakugan to inspect Kiba's chakra system for some poison remains. Shikamaru, Naruto, and Sasuke were simply content in waiting for the Jounin's decision to either return to the village or proceed with the mission, though Naruto could venture a guess that his lazy teammate wouldn't mind going back home. Kakashi and Asuma. What do you think, Asuma? The bearded Jounin took out a cigarette and lit it up before considering his comrade in action. Man sure has placed us in a tough spot with the guilt trip. Kakashi nodded with a sigh. Certainly, news about Konoha abandoning a client in the middle of a mission wouldn't bode well for the village, but the Jounin were responsible for the genin under their supervision. As such, they had many plausible reasons to simply walk away and let the Hokage deal with the consequences. That was even more true, considering that in this mission, they had 4 heirs of Konoha's main shinobi clans, and 2 of them were the most prestigious, Uchiha and Hyuga clan. Neither Kakashi nor Asuma would be blamed for taking the safe route and returning to the village. However, neither of them felt alright abandoning the old man right now. For sure, if we proceed, this mission would be at least A-ranked. Gato wouldn't settle for a couple of Chunin to kill Tazuna. Obviously, there is at least a Jounin waiting. That was quite an obvious conclusion, and Asuma grunted. One Jounin would be wishful thinking. Gato has deep pockets for sure, he wouldn't save money on something like this. Kakashi's eyes were focused on Tazuna's tense disposition, as well as the genin teams. Okay, if they have more than one Jounin, we will have to deal with them. And if they had more Chunin, as well, then Sasuke and Naruto will have to assume a secondary leading role in this mission. What's your intake with Naruto? What exactly do you wish to know, Kakashi? The silver-haired Jounin looked straight at Asuma for this one. Asuma saw a rare but focused disposition on the leading Jounin. Assuming that we are occupied with the Jounin, Naruto would have to assume a more leading role to the Genin if we are to face other Chunin as well. Sasuke is strong as well, but I can feel that Naruto is the more experienced of the bunch. Asuma finished his smoke and threw away with a smile on his face at Kakashi's inquiry. Right after stepping away from the Chunin's initial onslaught, Asuma turned his focus on how his team handled it in his absence. Naruto could have dealt with his foe by himself without much trouble, but he inspired Hinata into facing and defeating the enemy together using teamwork. He is ready if it comes to that. Though, Sasuke could certainly operate together with him. Kakashi nodded. So, shall we proceed? Asuma though merely snorted. Sure, just send in a message to the Hokage informing of the change in parameters, but I am good to go. The Jounin had already summoned a nin dog by the time and quickly scribbled a message to be sent to the Hokage. Back with the Genin. The rest of the team got up as Asuma and Kakashi arrived from their discussion. Tazuna's heart was beating fast in apprehension for their answer. Kakashi was certainly taking his sweet time with his answer. Despite already deciding to go ahead, he for sure would make the man sweat for a while. Konoha may be benevolent like that, but he didn't want to see other clients thinking that they could simply walk inside the village and fool them. If Tazuna decides to do the same thing again, he could very well get a comrade killed. Tazuna, we shall proceed for now. And we just communicated with the Hokage about the mission parameters. For sure, Konoha will demand compensation for an A-rank mission afterward. The old man turned from downright fearing for his life to being upbeat about the situation. Oh, for sure, thank you very much. I'm sure that once the bridge is complete, trade will resume in my country, and I can come up with an agreement with the Hokage as compensation. Kakashi nodded as Asuma instructed the Genin. Okay everyone, listen up. From here on out, this is an A-rank mission. These two were Chunin level shinobi. So, we should expect to face Jounin level up next. Kakashi and I will handle them, but Naruto and Sasuke, you two shall be our next line of defense. Sasuke and Naruto turned to eye each other briefly and nodded. Kiba and Hinata will be our scouts ahead. Shikamaru and Sakura will be close to Tazuna for his protection. The 6 Genin all complied with the next set of orders as they moved once more for a while until the group arrived to see a boat there waiting for Tazuna to arrive. Since the boat wasn't big enough for everyone, only Shikamaru, Hinata, Sakura, Sasuke, and Kiba joined in with Tazuna in tow. The area was heavy in humidity to the point that a heavy mist surrounded them. Naruto could practically perform all kinds of Suiton jutsu without much concentration. Despite opting to keep his secret for now, Naruto could use the high humidity in his favor to increase his sensing ability. Then, much to everyone but Hinata and Shikamaru's surprise, Naruto walked on top of the sea by Kakashi and Asuma's side. Sasuke was looking at his blonde rival in hidden awe at the skill. Boy, how the hell do you know how to do this? Kiba screamed in demand, but actually received a scolding from the man who was roaming the boat. Hey, keep your voice down. You want to get us all killed? Kiba had the decency to look apologetic, but he was still looking at Naruto and remembering the one he knew from the academy. Thanks for watching my video, leave a like if you enjoyed my video, and also do consider subscribing to my channel for more awesome content. If you want the next part of this story, let me know in the comment box. See you next time, till then sayonara.